Good afternoon and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your hosts Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn, along with two very illustrious, exciting guests here today, Chris Parker and Nate Geary. How are we doing, gentlemen?
I'm out of sight. I'm mesmerized by Nate's hair all of a sudden. I don't know what just happened to me, but I'm getting a.
It's the depth of the.
Here's what it is.
You almost look like a cartoon character.
I was going to wear a hat, but then I remembered who I was doing this podcast with. And it's sort of like when you're around Matt Perino or Greg Tompsett, you got to bring you've got to bring hair to the party.
And so I smartly faded that. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
We have some cool hats on this side of the room, though.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hats versus hair.
Yeah, hats versus hair.
It's good. It's good teamwork.
Well, it's also, this side handsome, that side
strong.
Well, I don't
strong.
Aaron.
Yes.
Shot and old.
No,
Maybe more.
Shot and
apropos.
old.
I don't know. Shot and old.
So we were just talking about how nice it's been today. Today's a beautiful day. We are here at the Leftern block party here all throughout downtown Buffalo in the 500 block. All kinds of good food, vendor stuff. And it's really been nice because the beginning of the week was a little rough. Everybody, the expectations, seeing the injury at the beginning of the game, and then how everything proceeded to go, finding new and creative ways to throw up on ourselves and be able to kind of take that down. It actually has been kind of nice today to see such great energy and excitement. I know as you were walking in, Chris, you said the same.
Yeah, it's a really cool scene down here. I mean, I've been down here many times, but not for this type of an event. So, I mean, hats off to everybody that put this together and everybody that's organized it. It looks great. And if folks missed out, I mean, make a note, make sure you catch it next time.
Yeah. I know you were coming over from Fatty Brewing. There's a nice crowd over there as well.
There's a great crowd over at Fatty Beer. I'll be over there later, slanging beers.
They've got my credit card right now.
They do,
so
yeah. It's on file. It's on file. We
over
don't even need to
there.
bring it over. No, but this is a great event because, and I don't know if you haven't been over in this district of Main Street, it's kind of being revived a bit. The first cannabis dispensary in Western New York in this whole area is right over here down the street.
Big fan of the people walking around with
giving
the giant
out a whole
signs
bunch of
that say
candy.
dank.
Yes, dank.
Big
The dank people.
signs. What a time to be alive.
I know you got OCB right here. You've got Masudo Chow. This is a great part of downtown, and I don't think a lot of people know about it. But the really interesting part about this building that we are in right now, where Leftern is kind of the outward facing, this is one of the largest, coolest buildings in Buffalo. It's old, but it's restored. There must be 30 vendors down this hallway that are right here. You're going to see a bunch of people, I'm sure, pass through here after a podcast, but super cool building, super cool event. And if you're watching this and you're at home looking for something to do today, you still got time.
Yeah. Greg, to your point though, it's been a rough week. Yeah. It's funny. I did, ready? I'm going to brag. I did Vegas radio yesterday. And one of the hosts kind of asked me this, is everybody really is going to ruin Sunday now and all that? I'm like, dude, we went years and years and in all of those years, the darkest times, the home opener was always people were always ready to get down and be positive. And that might only last a half a quarter, but you people have no idea. We're fine over here. We're
You start making plans for the home opener, what's on the menu, who's going to be invited, what is the transfer. You do that in April.
There's nothing that Western New York fall September weather can't fix. No matter what mood you're in, come out today, you're out there in the sun. Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up, have some coffee, get ready, tune into Nate, listen to the pregame, get amped for another Bills game. And, kind of bringing it back to the game, your guys' experience, week one's wonky, but how much can you sort of take away from such a bad looking week one performance? Is that going to come in and kind of ruin this week that you have here? Or was it just an aberration and that's just week one and we know who this team is?
I generally, I'm definitely going to subscribe for now to it's an aberration. I mean, I've thought really all off season that this team, as bad as they looked at the end of last year, got undone by a lot of things that were completely out of their control. Yeah. You don't get to choose when you're emotionally wrecked. You're just emotionally wrecked. And I think a lot of guys, not everyone, but I think a lot of guys in that team were. And that's been my sort of default mode for what happened last year. So my expectation is that they're still just as good, if not better, that they've been, and that the Jets are a bad matchup. I mean, Allen played terribly and made some awful decisions, they could have won the game. I think maybe comfortably without those decisions, even with as tough as the Jets are on defense. But it's a bad matchup, and I think they'll get well on Sunday. I think.
Well, and I think to Bulldog's point, though, the Jets are. I hate to say it because I joke with Dolphins fans about how, oh, hey, you finally won one after 9 out of the last 10. Congratulations. Yeah. The Jets really kind of have been Allen's kryptonite. Like, even in games we've won, it's been ugly. It hasn't been pretty. They've been able to figure it out.
What I think is kind of weird about that, though, is that when Salah was the coordinator in San Francisco, and that's one of the biggest breakthrough.
Yes,
I mean,
that's the game.
Yeah, that is
the game.
That
I can still see that
Fred Warner.
I can still see it.
Exactly. And it's I guess that maybe speaks, not that San Francisco was lacking for talent or anything, but the corners with the Jets, Quinn and Williams, it's a different set of personnel, and that's one game against San Francisco, so whatever. But it's kind of weird to me that scheme did not hinder Allen at all in that game. The game was in Arizona, right? That year against San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And I was going to say that to Nate that. I think that's gotten taken away. The fact that, yes, it was Zach Wilson. Yes, they absolutely should have won it. Yes, Allen's, for sure 2 or 3 mental mistakes and then another turnover that was just him trying to make a play. That is the reason they lost. But it has somehow turned into, oh, they should have destroyed this team. Like, it was a 1.5 point spread. It is, arguably the best defense in the NFL. And I think rightfully – they've gotten a lot of blame for throwing this game away, but I think it's also kind of taken away from the fact that it might be the best defense in the NFL.
I also maybe want to make some parallels because I think a lot of people, I know what we talked about, Aaron and I have talked about this. We've talked about this, which is like teams that are peaking at the right time. And it felt like back in 2021, the Bills really peaked going into January. And then obviously that performance against the Patriots, and then you get the Chiefs game. Like, I kind of keep going back to 2021 because the parallel is week 1. They lose 23-16 in an absolute stinker at home against,
with a special teams touchdown
a special teams touchdown. Right. They lose 22-16. If they have the extra point, it's the same score.
Ready to fire Daboll.
Ready to fire Daboll. Like, these were all of the things that happened that week 1. And then what do they do the following week? 35-0 against the Miami Dolphins. And I think that year is really interesting to take because they go 11-6. They win the division. By the way, I don't think 11 wins this division this year. I think it's too good of a division. But what I will say is that's a team that in December, Carolina at home, Atlanta at home, they started really finding their stride in the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. And then they have the 13-second game. And I think for me, like, that was the best we've seen Allen. It's the best we've seen the offense. And if you remember, that wasn't the only game there were calls for Daboll's job.
Sure.
It was the Jacksonville game. That's the Urban Meyer game, for God's sake.
That Atlanta game going into the playoffs.
Yeah, it wasn't super pretty. It wasn't super pretty. So, I think for me,
Jacksonville game is the origin of the year and I stake bet.
Right. Yes, that's right.
About how Daboll, we'd never be able to do anything. We wouldn't make the playoffs from that point forward because of Brian Daboll.
Yeah,
because we had to fire him. That was the origin of that bet.
Here, real quick, Nate, I want to
Coach of the year last
you bring up that San Francisco game, and we all think of that throw going right over Fred Warner, just over the fingertips. I brought that up on a show or Spaces or something this week in terms of the difference between a game where Josh Allen has 3 interceptions and a fumble and it looks and feels the way we're talking about, and those types of plays that he makes where it just goes over the guy's fingertips, it's a super thin margin. Yeah. And that throw to Gabe Davis that was intercepted, Josh has made a ton of times. And the conversation all week long has been like, how do you sort of neuter or dial back or get him to stop doing these things? But they're also the things that we applaud that throw against Fred Warner. And if he makes that throw to Gabe Davis, that's game over. It's a wrap. Like, where is the line of, hey, we got to dial Josh back, or we just have to live and die with the 15% of the time is going to look totally chaotic?
I'll go back to a caller that I had on Sunday. You don't put 87 octane in a Ferrari. You don't put a governor on a Ferrari. You ask the driver.
Unless you're driving downtown.
Unless you're driving down Main Street, in which case, that's a different story. But I think what it comes down to, and this has been, I think everyone's looking at the wrong things when they talk about Ken Dorsey, right? I think everyone's talking about play calling and design and scheme and structure. And sure, I mean, you can do that with any offensive coordinator. You can do that with Kyle Shanahan if you want. Where I think the failures, if you want to call them, have come in being able to develop Josh as the football player, where like Bill Belichick talked about Brian Daboll being this coach that could coach offense, defense, and special teams and just knew the game at such a high level. And I think a lot of Brian Daboll was rubbing off on Josh Allen, the football player, and understanding defenses and what they were trying, how they were trying to beat you. And I think right now with Ken Dorsey, it's like you want Ken Dorsey to be more of a mentor to Josh, not just I'm going to call plays, but I need to lead you to making better decisions in that the maturity process. So yeah, I don't like limiting Josh Allen or asking him to stop being who he is, I think is a mistake. I do think that you need him to start understanding why it's not okay to leap over a defender on 3rd and 15, 7 yards short. Like that play, to me, I'll live with the interceptions. I will live with the interceptions.
I'm with you. I was completely freaked out by the way he was running around on Monday night. Like it looked like the Houston playoff game from 2019.
Just Sugar High Josh. That's where the nickname came from.
And that's why it's funny. Like we were talking on our show this week. Like Rodgers goes out and like the Bills only had the ball one time. And I was already like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm worried about Allen. So like Rodgers goes out and I immediately went in my head, you can't lose this game. Whereas I think a lot of fans went, this game's over.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was over because I was already, Josh had touched the ball 5 times and I was already like, I don't know, man.
So the hard part was, so going into this game, I had everything in the lens of like, hey, we can't be crazy here. I don't want 7-step drops with this defensive line. I don't want deep shots where we're hoping Josh doesn't have to escape.
How they started.
I love the disciplined, I love the movement of Kincaid, even the Deontay Hardy. Like I like the movement and then a couple quick, plant the seed that you have to pay attention to him going across and get the ball out quickly. And they were like, it's so hard because he was executing on it, seeing that he could set up his teammates to succeed. And then something, I don't know what it is, goes into like you said, if all of a sudden Stephon Diggs makes a contested catch in the end zone, we're celebrating. If Deontay Hardy cuts in front and runs that down and catches it, we're throwing parties like, oh my God, look at the howitzer. Yeah.
3 yards.
The one that
hits Avery Williamson in the right in the face mask. Yeah.
The one that you guys brought up, and you especially when you see it from the other angle, the all 22 angle, and you see him coming out, and you can see him register, I'm not going to make it to the first down. What do I do? And where we need desperately for that to register, okay, just slide.
Instead, it's short circuits.
It's the Mitch McConnell.
It just short circuits.
How does that immediate trigger response in him go, I got it, I'm going to leap both of these guys.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. It's split second decision, right? And you are either wired away or you're not wired away. And so I've had this conversation all week long too, that we want him to stop. I agree. It's painful to watch. I don't think he can. I think when those moments happen, it's yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's going to do those things in the situations that are just a terrible spot to do it.
That really worries me.
Yeah, he's just that's the way he is.
Really,
I think.
Does. I mean, Dan Orlovsky, sit down, tell him to grow up. Like, that's harsh. He's great. Like his greatness is the only thing that has not the only thing, but it's the thing.
What do you think sports talk radio in 1996 was saying about Brett Favre?
Right.
Though, right? Like, I wish he would just stop throwing into double coverage, making these plays.
But we've never seen it's like a guy in a straitjacket and he's just waiting to break free. And it's like you get him in these situations where it's almost like he gets bored and he's convinced himself on the sidelines, like, man, I see one opportunity, I'm taking it. And it's like he goes rogue a little bit. And
still like 15%.
Yeah,
well, I would say he's 10%. Yeah. And Orlovsky said this. It's like in his little argument with Stephen A. Smith, it's like you are penalizing a player for the 10% and almost ignoring the other 90 in how you're judging this player. And that's the tough part about it.
Even more so, when you have spent your life being doubted, not being invited to the camps, not getting the scholarships, everyone clowning the team that drafted you, and then you figure out the way that you're going to prove everyone wrong. You do it, you get national praise, cover of Madden, all the attention, and now we want him to go, hey,
and $250 million
and $258 million. And now we want you to go, hey, I know that you just like proved the entirety of math wrong, I think is the quote. You just disproved the entirety of math. We want you, but not even that. We don't want you to dial it back. We only want the good stuff.
Right.
We only want the good stuff, and we want you to know when it's going to be the bad stuff and preemptively decide not to do that and only give us the good stuff.
I do think I'm usually, I mean, you mentioned like how everybody was after Dayball at one point, like, or was that before we started? Whatever. I'm always late to it's the coordinator because
Jimmy's and the Joes, not the X's and the O's.
The way it works. I mean, you know how it works. Allen is the guy, and the coach is faceless, nameless. Might as well be anyway, right? I mean, we know who's. You know what I'm saying? They're replaceable. Allen's not.
An awful lot of people could look good calling plays for Josh Allen.
So the criticism always, it's human nature. You don't want to criticize the thing you love, right? I'm getting a little worried about some of the stuff. I mean, I don't know if you guys. I know this. You guys do this too, and I'm always reluctant to do it because I don't think you can cherry pick stuff. But like, I watched a Kurt Warner breakdown of the Gabe Davis pick, and I thought the explanation made tremendous sense. I think the pick to Diggs, the Sherfield route, instead of cutting in, you can hold that safety there. Like, give them something. I'm holding my beer out here like this. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Put the beer down. Like, is that poor design or is that laziness by Davis? Because all Davis has to do on the third pick is give the guy a step, just one inside, and then bust out, and that guy is frozen.
Yes.
So I don't know. Is that route depth, design problem, or is that lazy route running?
Right. A quick shout out to our guys, Eric Turner and Anthony Prohaska in the film room, did a really good job pointing out you could see some of the newness in the receiving core. We had some weird route spacing issues we don't normally see. Yeah. Like why are two guys in the same spot?
There was a completion, right? Diggs and Davis were on the same hash.
Why are they in the same spot? Like, that's not right. That's weird. So there's some of those things that we've seen enough track record that's gonna work itself out that I think we can be okay. And as I was kind of like forcing myself to go through it and emotionally heal from like watching that game, I kind of just did a stream of consciousness message that went like back and forth of like, hey, he's awesome. He did some things we've never seen before. He did some things we never want to see again. I don't know. And the hardest one for me to swallow is he's our only chance to get to February.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he can give us 4 straight awesome games in January and February, but it's our only chance to do it.
Right.
And what I think that Aaron's comp to Brett Favre is a good one that we probably need to brace ourselves that he is going to end a few of our seasons of his own fault, but all we need is one where he doesn't. All we need is one where he doesn't. Right. And we wouldn't have been in that spot without him. And now we're in a chance where if he strings together 4 of those in a row, we get a trophy. And he's the only reason we'd get invited to the dance. And we are all
probably privately, quietly hoping to ourselves that season was not 2021.
Well, Greg says it right. Like, can he do the 4 in a row? I think he's shown.
He did 2 in a row.
Right.
He at least got the 2 in a row.
But not just 2 in a row of really good football. Like,
perfect
the greatest thing you've almost ever seen. He was a witch.
I spent 5 years every week telling fans, stop looking for perfect football. You're never going to get a perfect game. And no matter what they did, there was fans looking for more. And then he did it twice. And I was like, well, I can't.
He did it to Belichick and Mahomes.
Yeah.
How do we get it back?
It's such a, there's a lot of nuance to the conversation about how and why. And I think like, you look at a game and I know we're all big fans of Aaron Schatz, right? And like, he talks about the Bills are going to be fine. Like, that's a game where you have 4 turnovers You did everything you could to beat yourself. You gave up an 80-yard run. You have a running back in the Jets averaging 12.7 yards a carry.
Tough.
Is that good?
And you lose by a special teams kick return touchdown in overtime.
Yeah.
Like, that's a difficult perspective. It's a line to draw. And it's like, man, and I'm doing post game and I'm sitting there and I'm angry. And then I got to this point. I'm like,
that's the highlight of the Jets season.
Why am I? Yeah. Why are you?
Yeah.
Why did I just field a call about Josh Allen watching Kyle Allen for? Why am I? What are we?
You guys got to
doing?
filter those. So it needs to get.
Listen, that's good radio.
They do. They do.
That's
Those
good
are the
radio.
best
I don't care
ones.
who you are.
We don't want to hear those ones. Yeah, well, to Schatz's point, though, and I'll kind of kick this to you, one thing he's really high on and looked great Monday night, and it's not getting talked about because of how high variance Josh Allen's play was this Bills defense under Sean McDermott, Matt Milano flying around. Like, that is what Aaron Schatz feels good about, is that this Bills defense is going to replicate their type of success.
I know Aaron Rodgers only played 4 plays, but did he not get hit on
Every
all
single
4
one.
of the
All
plays?
four.
Like,
And by the way,
they were just
that,
all over it.
That play where he gets hurt looked a lot like the Aaron Rodgers from last season that people were saying he looks kind of shot.
Yeah.
Like he's seeing, like maybe he spent a little too much time doing those ayahuasca trips because it's like he's slow to react. He's slow to process. There is
such a thing as being too relaxed.
That's right. And there was like 4 open receivers on that play. You hit the top of your drop, you're supposed to release the ball, and he didn't.
Yeah, as a quarterback, what does it mean when the regular fan is watching a lineman make a cut block? What is that telling you that the design of the play was?
Correct. Get rid of the ball as soon as possible. As quickly as you can.
No, linemen don't just do cut blocks for fun.
Yeah, because the guys pop back up.
And they're doing that because it's going to be a quick throw that you want the defensive lineman's hands to come down to deal with the cut block because it's going to be a quick pass.
Yeah.
So both times that he got sacked and then injured, they were both cut blocks that he couldn't help himself from wanting to be a little the Josh Allen. Like, I want to show you I'm Aaron Rodgers. Watch this. And unfortunately got himself hurt.
You know, the other thing too, and like I maybe haven't heard a lot of people talk about this. I talked about this a little with Pat the other day on his podcast, which is like, if you want to talk about being frustrated from the game plan perspective, there's some holes you can find. The thing that I guess frustrated me was like they threw out 30 different personnel variations, which I liked a lot. You saw Gilliam, you saw 23 personnel, you saw 13, you saw 12. But I didn't see necessarily a change. I just saw different ways of doing the same thing. Like, where is we are building stuff for Dalton Kincaid? Because if you're not, why did you draft him? And like,
you could have thrown the passes you threw to him to Lee Smith.
And in the preseason,
I mean, really,
you saw what he did in the preseason. Those like slot, like, you know, in like off of the hash mark vertical routes. Like, where was that stuff? Like, get it. Where are you building the matchups that you drafted him for? That to me was frustrating. If you want to blame scheme or be mad about scheme, that's what I was mad about. Is like, where is he's a rookie tight end making his first start. Do I expect them to scheme up 10 plays for him to be the number? No. But where are our 5? You're like, this play is built to get him open.
So and there weren't many. The one I can think of, I think the first drive that ended in a field goal, and on third down, it was either a sack or he had to get rid of it because of the pressure, was going to be a corner touchdown to Dalton Kincaid. And he had him beat and he was open. And I couldn't, either Josh had to eat it or had to throw it away because he was taking pressure. But there weren't nearly enough of those to go through.
I did like some of the stuff though. Out Kincaid, what he presents for this team is when they're not running the ball. Both Knox and Kincaid, I said it on our post-game show. After that performance, what was it? 4 targets each. Double that. Give them both 10 to 12 total. 14, between the two of them, because what they are doing that the Bills really haven't had last year is providing some physicality on the offensive side of the ball. Even on those short outs, his athleticism and the size and the frame forces defensive backs to come up and hit, and guys don't want to tackle a Dalton Kincaid or a Dawson Knox. And if you're not running the ball and getting the physicality that way, that's a way to do it. And it provides what Beasley did for the team, which is keeping drives ahead of schedule. And I think the turnovers were really bad. Probably the pinnacle of what caused a lot of the turnovers, and Sean McDermott addressed this, was bad starts on first down. low success rate on first down time and time again, starting those drives behind the chains. And guys like Kincaid and Knox allow you to stay 3rd and short and not get in the 3rd and 9 situations.
Gabe Davis is also going to have a lot of this. His whole career has been that. I don't know that I felt lower about – and Gabe's had worse games than that, but I don't know that I felt lower about what he is in this offense this year than I did in that. Like, I walked away from that game thinking Dalton Kincaid should be your number 2 pass catcher.
Yeah.
And that sucks to think that way because it's really important. I felt – what I can tell you I felt is I would like to find ways to get more Deontay Hardy on the same side of the field as Gabriel Davis and have Gabe as a blocker.
It's getting to the point now where, one, I'm curious, does Gabe Davis regret not signing whatever? Obviously, there were enough whispers out there that there were negotiations on an extension taking place, and obviously it didn't happen. Not that it can't happen in season. We saw Taron Johnson. It's much rarer to happen in season. Does he regret not taking the offer that came from them?
I'm on Team Jeremy White. Draft one.
So it's now going to get to the point where, is it crazy to think that Dalton Kincaid starts to step into that number 2 target role, and then you have a mix of Gabe Davis and Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield, and they're all kind of interchangeable, movable pieces, plus having Dawson Knox, and then all of a sudden maybe it's better cap allocation.
I think that's
usage.
the only way they're different from last year is if they do that. The trick is doing that with a rookie tight end, and Cole Beasley and a tight end, whatever, however you want to parse it. That's the only real meaningful difference to the passing game. I think the other piece is like Hardy. We want Hardy to be an improvement on McKenzie, and maybe he will prove to be. Yeah. But how tangible is that, right?
Can anyone be an improvement, though?
The variable.
Can anyone be an improvement over Isaiah McKenzie if they just do all of the same things all the time?
If he's faster and more elusive.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's some ball security things,
some
things that can improve, but ultimately, how tangible and noticeable, especially to like the normal fan just watching the game, that's not like looking at the. I think
it was entirely fair
analytics
all off season to look at what they did from if you panned out. Like if I'm doing what we all do in Buffalo, if I'm doing this in Chicago or in Minneapolis, and I'm talking about the Bills, I'm going, okay, Sherfield, Hardy, like what? There's a reason we were all campaigning for Odell Beckham Jr. and DeAndre Hopkins. You wanted something proven, and I think Kincaid is your best chance at that. And it's a rookie tight end. Like you got to make that work.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
there's a lot of pressure. All right, guys, we're gonna put you on the spot because we always do it for every guest that comes through here. Game tomorrow. Give us a prediction. Tell us how it's going to go. Give us like a score prediction and just kind of about how the game is going to go in your mind. What do you expect?
I would expect myself to be frustrated by the number of calls I'm receiving on post game about Josh Jacobs running for 150 yards that mean almost nothing because I think the Bills win 30-17.
I like that. I like that a lot. Nathan.
Yeah, I think the Bills win. It's hard to pin down a score for me because the Bills are going to be playing some pretty remarkable duos and trios of pass rushers this year. Started last week, Quinn and Williams. I think an interesting trio. It's not just edge players. Tyree Wilson got 15 snaps in preseason, and 10 of them you were like, they got Max Crosby too. Oh, and they've also got Chandler Jones. Spencer Brown is going to be lining up against Max Crosby for 60 some plays on Sunday.
I hope 58 of them have Dawson Knox next.
I am shitting bricks thinking about that matchup. So I think for me, that could dwarf the score a little bit, but I still like the Bills 28-20, 30-21, something like that. But I think that this is an opportunity for the Bills offense to get back on track. What it looks like, it may not be the pretty thing we're all looking for, the perfect performance, because I think that there's a good chance Josh Allen's running for his life again. It's not always a bad thing, but I need Spencer Brown to have a bounce back game.
Yeah, that would be great. So thank you both for your time. We appreciate it greatly.
Of course, appreciate the invite.
Appreciate you guys jumping on.
Big fan of the work you guys do.
Thank you. It means a lot. Really. Thank you very much. All right.
I don't
Wow. It's like Josh Allen and Peter King over here.
Although he gave me a free beer, so I
just want to say this is awesome.
Our next guest joining us in just a moment here will be Pat Moran.
Thanks, guys.
Of Talking Buffalo fame and helping us produce all this goodness here today. Again, make sure you come on down. All kinds of good stuff going on here. This setup is fantastic. All the different things going on here for today has been a ton of fun. So, Pat, welcome.
In real life.
Thank you very, very much. The gracious host, all of his fantastic equipment here helping us out.
Contractually obligated to have you on here because we borrowed your stuff.
We felt bad because he set up all our stuff.
That's
We
right.
had to have him on the show.
Thanks.
What's going on, brother?
Not too much. This is really cool.
It's awesome.
I had no idea there were going to be this many people down here. I just
really
walked
is
the
cool.
whole thing. We went outside. Patrick Miller's with me. We went
What's
to
happening, man?
we went to I don't even know what the bar is next door. It's packed. There's a
Masuda
loud
Chow's-
music.
Masuda Chow's
Yeah,
right
this
next
is
door.
really cool, man.
Yeah.
Did you get your picture taken with Barbie Josh?
Not
out
yet.
front?
I did see it though, and I saw your tweet earlier, so I will at some point.
I'm
This
guessing
whole
there's so
setup
many
is amazing.
people because I tweeted. I'm thinking that's what
That's probably
happened.
why.
Trendsetter.
Right?
Trendsetter.
Probably.
So, just giving shout outs to the people that are here. There are so many vendors going by. All the people you see.
Buff
going
on Weck
by.
right behind
Yeah,
us
Buff
in the
on
house.
Weck's
What up,
right
Buff on
here.
Weck?
The Bill's Mafia Babes. Oxford.
Del
Penny,
Reed, I seen
20
Del Reed
Del
already
Reed,
running the Del.
26 shirts. Tons of other vendors. A bunch of people that I hadn't seen before that I bought stuff from.
Twitter personalities.
And-
I've seen a bunch of Twitter
Yeah, I
personalities out
have
here.
you?
Quite a few.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple.
You
we
are
got-
one.
Well, you're obviously.
I
here
guess.
at Leftern, being able to get in here for the block party, we appreciate them hosting us and being an awesome sponsor here for this year. So, Pat, you heard some of our conversation with Bulldog and with Nate, and we did rehash a lot of that game, but I want to give you a chance here and just with what you saw, where are you in the balance of, hey, we're going to get some of those from Josh because he does have an awful lot of, as Aaron reminds us, that Brett Favre in him, and that it just sucks that it was the first game and we don't remember it when it's the Jacksonville game week 9 and we move on. But when it's the season opener, it kind of hurts a little bit more versus where is your radar of like, maybe I am a little nervous about the season.
I've said this analogy before. It's a boxing one, how styles make fights.
Yep.
And I would be more concerned about Josh Allen if this happened in week 1 against New England or Pittsburgh, which did happen 2 years ago, not to that extent. But anyway, for whatever reason, the Jets just play the Bills really tough defensively. It's just a nightmare matchup
Kind of had a
for them.
kryptonite thing.
Yeah, exactly. Every guy has somebody that they struggle against, and it's just not a good fit.
Not to interrupt, I use the analogy. All those years that the Patriots were going on their crazy Super Bowl runs, every year they stubbed their toe on the Dolphins.
The Wildcat.
Over
That's where
and
the
over.
Wildcat came from,
all the
right?
time. Every
Yeah.
year they would be the best team in the league, and the Dolphins, we weren't making the playoffs. We would beat the Dolphins, and the Patriots would lose to the
Just a
Dolphins over
matchup.
and over again
Yeah, man.
because sometimes there's just a weird matchup there.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to blow it off like it's nothing because it is something, but the whole game management thing, I don't know. It depends on who the opponent is because obviously, and I'm not saying anything that everyone doesn't already know, all you had to do was not screw the game up on Monday. That was it. But then sometimes, you said this earlier this week, you got to go out and you got to beat the Chiefs and you got to beat the Eagles and you got to go out and you got to be aggressive and you got to roll the dice and you got to make some plays. The quarterback that you have, like even the touchdown, as bad as he played, the one touchdown that they had was him rolling out last second.
Him making a play.
He's one of precious few quarterbacks that make that play. And I feel like more often than not, he still makes the play as opposed to turning the ball over and breaking their back. My mindset has not changed too much based on one game. But I'm not going to say that I'm not concerned at all because that would be a lie.
So that play didn't come up, and that's the one I've had in my mind. I'll ask you, Aaron, the way that we get frustrated on the hurdle play, and we should. There was no like the risk versus reward of that play where there was no upside.
Yeah.
If you clear them, you land 5 yards short of the first
But
down.
you look bad at
It does look cool. It does look really cool. So the risk reward and that, like the wiring in his mind. However, we dismiss. He could have tried to do the same thing on the Diggs touchdown, and he could have gone and said, "Hey, I'm at the 6-yard line. There's a safety and a linebacker there. I could just try to truck them both and try to score a touchdown." And honestly, like second-year Josh, that's his play. But he did see Diggs pull up. I think there was like that much of his big toenail still behind the line, but it counted. It was accurate.
Right. The rules
like,
are rule.
So at least there is some of that last minute decision making, that it's not all negative. He is making plays with it. And I think we focused on the negative because he did make enough of those mistakes. Is that something we should be holding on to more?
But even that play going to the edge like that, it's like you have to be high on being Josh. Like very few quarterbacks are even going to take that type of play, running full speed, razor's edge to the last minute and try to make that throw. So even that is what makes him special and provides him what makes him the threat to either run or pass in that situation is the past things that he has done and put himself in that situation. I just keep coming back to all week. I hear this conversation of like, how do we dial him back and in those moments? And I just don't think you can. I think we've got to live with this 15% and hope that 15% doesn't rear its head in a playoff game, or that it doesn't result in an injury or be the reason that the game gets out of control. And we said it all along. You said it the other day, like, yes, it's the totality of the 4 turnovers, but 2 of them didn't matter, right? Like only 2 of the turnovers really matters, the situational stuff. And so even if we go throughout the rest of this season and Josh continues to have say a 15% output of this high variance, bad football, you're still winning 11 games. He's still going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's still going to put up astronomical numbers, and you're still going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl in the playoffs. Like, what more do we want? Like, yeah, we would like it to be perfect, but this is the yin and yang that you live with as a Bills fan, having that opportunity. Yeah,
and you have to live with it. I mean, that's the type of quarterback he is. My concern isn't the game, how he played. My concern was his body language during the game. Just something seemed off to me. Sure. It's like he knew what was coming. It's like he is in his mind, his eyes, it almost looked like, well, here we go again. It's the Jets.
That's probably been my biggest beef is like after the post game, I get probably the most sensitive with Josh Allen is I hate the pouting and we're gonna stand up and just take it on the chin again. I can't play like this.
I can't do this. It almost seems,
and I know he can't say anything else, but
in this week, like what he did, he took genuine accountability. Sure. He even did that, like
he always does.
Like, hey,
but I'm sick of it. Like, I'm so sick of hearing it.
Same shit, same spot, different day. It almost made like, so one, the silver lining of that is that going to be that was the wake up call of like, okay, I know a lot of people.
Patriots game was supposed to be the wake up call.
A lot of people thought like, hey, he spent an awful lot of time like healing and letting his body get right this season. I didn't see a lot of like sweat dripping IG posts like I did from other people. I didn't see him flying people out to go through. I saw a lot of like Catalina wine mixers and golf outings and video game cover shoot things and vacations with actresses. I didn't see a ton of the other stuff, but he did need to heal. He did need to get himself right. I want to tell myself that was I can't just kind of dance through this season. I do have to put in the work. I do have to follow the game plan. And I really need this to be a get right game this week. Were you nervous about that post-game presser and that, hey, maybe something's off? Or do you think it was him coming to that realization?
I think you're right. And going back to the game, my biggest beef with the game is, I don't know if it's a coach. I don't know if it's a player. Somebody needs to be able to reel him in a little bit at some point and stop saying, hey, man, it's going to be all right. And I know Stephon Diggs tried to on that last drive, and they went down to score too.
Yeah. I got the name for you.
Oh,
the person who I think would have the most impact and to do it in the locker room in front of the team is Mitch Morse.
Yeah.
If Mitch Morse goes up to him and says, Josh, you don't have your hopes and dreams and aspirations and career in your hand. You have our hopes and dreams and aspirations in your hand when you have that ball. I'm never going to achieve this again without you. So when you're throwing that away, you're throwing my opportunity away. I almost think it needs to be someone like him to have it really register and understand. And everyone thinks of Diggs. Everyone thinks of like Poyer or Milano or like Dawkins or like a captain. For some reason, he's the one that sticks out to me that I think it would register the most.
I never thought of that. That's a good point.
That is a good one. I think more simplistically, X's and O's, Dorsey I feel like the mix of relationship, they've got to figure out how to Dorsey needs to not be the gasoline. And he talked about that a little bit today, like being the calm voice in his ear. And I think that comes down to play calling too. Like when things started to unravel a little bit in that second half, they went away from James Cook. I made a post about James Cook looking awesome, and people pushed back on me, and I had to dial it back because, yeah, the box score didn't look awesome for James Cook, but the few reps that he did have, especially in that first half, I liked what I saw. He continues to impress me, and he is what will be that calming force for Josh Allen to take some of the pressure off, is get him going in the run game in that second half, get that physicality going, get him to burst for some explosiveness and take that pressure off of Josh. You run teams out of cover too high shell stuff. And Dorsey went away from that. I think he leaned into, let's get Josh going, and we have to get him completions. And sometimes you got to dial him back. And the way to do is play calling.
What are fans' expectations of like, what kind of quarterback do you want him to be? Do you want him to be Alex Smith? Do you want him to be the Riverboat Gambler? I mean, he is who he is. He's going to make mistakes. You got to live with him. And you even got to live with the game like he had. As tough as it is to live with that game, and it was hard to watch at times. I'm at the point where you got to live with it. You got to have faith that he's going to bounce back. I don't want Josh Allen going out and throwing Trent Edwards. I don't want him playing like Trent Edwards. Just checking the ball down the whole game. He's going to take his shots.
To your point, you're saying, how do we, when he's in this mode and he's having 7 to 10 real chaotic moments in a game, how do we get it to be 5 instead of 10?
Coaching or Mitch Morse, like Greg said, somebody has to be able to reel him, because the biggest flaw I see in Josh Allen's game isn't even the mistakes and the turnovers, because all the great quarterbacks who play high risk are going to have those types of plays. It's not letting it spiral out of control. It's reeling. That's what I mean by reeling him in, not just, hey, go back to dumping the ball out, whatever it may be to get him to relax. Just something seemed off just looking at him on TV. I don't know other quarterbacks too, Greg, who struggle. Do they sit on the, and I'm asking, it's a genuine question. Did they go on the bench? Does Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady, did they just sit on the bench like that by themselves with nobody near them? Somebody said, well, they're veterans. They don't need nobody talking. I don't know. Just something just seemed off about Monday in that regard.
If you watch the quarterback
show on Netflix.
The show on Netflix, Quarterback, you did see some of those moments with Mahomes slamming his helmet onto the stand, with Cousins slamming his helmet onto the stand.
Mm-hmm.
I think those moments are a lot more universal than what we realize, and I think the moments of solitude are probably more universal. Now, the length and how long you give people those moments, I think, do kind of there probably is a line, and I almost wonder, how can Dorsey, in a game like Sunday, and it won't be the same here this coming Sunday, Monday night, he had to limit it and dial it back and, really control the way that we're doing those things to be able to go through. And I think he needs to find a way. Okay, I know Josh is getting frustrated. I know Josh is feeling limited and stifled. How do I sprinkle him a little bit of catnip? How do I give him just a little something? They're like, okay, all right, hey, I let you have one, and then go back to it. Like, how can he almost needs to understand that they're like, hey, you're not going to put a governor on him the entire game, and that yes, you could make an argument that if we made him play like Trent Edwards all night Monday night, we would have won. We probably would have won.
Yes,
like 30-6 running away.
Yeah,
but okay, he can't process that. That's not going to work for Josh. So how can I give him a 90% Trent Edwards game plan and then sprinkle him a little something every once in a while just to let him unleash it, let him have a little something, give him a shot down the field? I almost think like you almost have to do that to keep him mentally in the game the way that you want.
I honestly, not to make excuses for him, I go back to what I first said. It's the Jets. I don't know what it is, man. It's just something about the Jets that's in his head. And
I know what it is. It's a good.
When's the last time he's played good against the Jets?
Yeah, well, I know exactly what it is. It's not just the Jets. The Jets are going to do that to a lot of offenses this season. They have at all three levels of defense, they present a bunch of problems. And that's the thing, to kind of bring it back to this Raiders matchup here this week, home opener, the reason we're out here. That made me feel a lot better watching that Raiders-Broncos game and seeing the lack of top-tier talent at all three levels of both sides of the ball. Like, you have a couple pieces. You have Davante Adams. Jimmy G can play really efficiently. Obviously, Josh Jacobs. It's very top-heavy.
Did Jimmy G throw more than one pass more than 15 yards on the entire game?
That's what I'm saying. So it feels a little toothless. And it's like, okay, it's top-heavy. Yeah, Max Crosby's going to make plays. Davante Adams is going to make some plays. But I don't have to worry about all three levels of depth and a team just playing really great on one side of the ball. This one feels like a little bit more relaxed. This isn't a team that's going to really should have your number this week. Provides a really good opportunity. I hate to call it a get-right game in the NFL because all these teams are competitive, but it feels like there couldn't be a better matchup on the schedule right now to come into this week.
This is a perfect matchup except for one thing. It's a high pressure game for the Buffalo Bills right now, based on what happened on Monday. Not saying they won't. Not saying
you're high pressure at home. That's
not saying that they won't rise, to meet that pressure. Sure. But there's a lot of pressure on this team right now because of losing to the. If they would have lost to the Jets and Aaron Rodgers didn't get hurt, and it was like they lost 31-27,
right?
Be like, all right, whatever, it's one game. But the way they lost to who they lost to have to come back home and.
Oh, and if you lose or
and there's just
two
a lot of
to start, like the numbers are not favorable.
At least some of these guys are reading the headlines too. What the national people are saying about them.
They're sharing your tweets.
Well,
careful.
I've been pretty nice. To
I was
going
to say, all right.
Oh, that's not right. I've been nice to the Bills this week. Surprisingly, I've kept the level head, which is
that combination of. If you were to go not only 0-2, but a division loss, 2 conference losses in a rock-solid AFC this year, it would really be a mess. And I think, in the previous segment, Chris talked about, the calls he's going to get about Josh Jacobs.
I heard that.
Because you want to know what?
Who
Josh
cares?
Jacobs is really freaking good.
Yeah.
Him running for 100 yards or not is not going to be the difference in this game. His prediction was 30-17 while Josh Jacobs runs for 150 yards, which is totally possible.
All the way to field goals.
Well, and even with those, obviously everybody harps on the Breece Hall run. Christian Benford caught him and they held him to a field goal.
Right.
Like, yes, is it frustrating that we probably should have shut them down or even got a defensive score when they're starting at the 4-yard line with Zach Wilson? Of course. It should have been better. It's not acceptable that Trey White missed that tackle.
Right.
But ultimately, they did their job. They held it. They didn't let them score a touchdown. I think that we're going to see a lot of that, and that it's going to take, for this to turn bad, you would need a historic Max Crosby performance and a breakout from Tyree Wilson.
And a special teams touchdown.
Well, and a 200-yard, 3-touchdown Josh Jacobs, put the team on his back kind of performance.
When you guys did your show 2 years ago, when they lost the home season opener to Pittsburgh, do you remember the pulse of the fan base that week? Like the temperature of the fans, it was very gloomy.
It wasn't great.
Felt like at the time, and that was coming off. That was after they had lost to the Chiefs in the championship before,
yes.
right?
Yep.
All right, so it was just a bad game.
But we were having the same conversation of look at that defense. Right, there's very few defensive fronts that are going to be able to have present that type of pressure over and over again. It's week 1. You're going to get it right. You're going to get that pressure dialed back. You're going to find some things, put some tricks in. You had faith, and I think I still do. Right, this is again, even if Josh maintains this type of play and he plays erratic and he's jumping over people on second and whatever. 80% of the time, you're going to get a high level of play that's going to win you 11 football games. And I don't agree with Nate. Nate was on here and saying 11 wins doesn't get it done in the AFC East. I don't think that's true. I actually think 11 wins might actually get it done in the AFC East.
I think his logic is correct in that because it's so talented in the AFC East specifically, you think, that means you need to win more. What it actually means is
they're all going to be.
I don't know. I don't think the Chiefs are going to win 14 games.
Right.
I don't think everyone's going to get brought back down.
I'm not sure anyone's going to win 14.
To stub your toe multiple times.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to win 14 games in the AFC this year.
No, and now you remove the Jets, I think, from contention to a maybe 7-8 win team. That'd still be a tough out, and they're going to play the Bills again.
Tough and run game, no matter what they do, whether it's Jacoby Brissett, whether they trade for Jameis Winston, whether they roll with Zach Wilson or sign Zach. I really hope they sign Carson Wentz because I think it'd be the funniest outcome. They're not going to all of a sudden tank. Their defense and running game is too good.
No.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to. So they're going to be just a really scrappy 6-11, 7-10 team. But it's going to be they're going to mess with somebody's season. The Patriots, same thing. I don't think the Patriots are going to make the playoffs, but they're going to ruin some other teams' seasons.
Sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Miami Sunday tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Let's flip fully over here. Talk a little bit about this game on Sunday. What are you expecting from? Let's start on the Bills side of it. What are you expecting from a game plan standpoint? Do you think this is the kind of game where, hey, let's just try to ease Josh back into it. Let's let the other guys control it. We think we actually can run the ball on them. Let's make this a game. I said on Wednesday night, maybe it's 3 different running backs have 50-plus yards. Maybe we really get everybody going and you try to ease into it that way in some play action shots. Or do you think they need to flip to the other side and we almost need Josh to have 350 and 4 touchdowns with 80 rushing yards to get him back into that space.
Nope. Because then you're going into a potential Jet situation just like last week. You're the better team. Don't lose the game. And I think this is going to be a big game for James Cook. Like, if you got him on your fantasy team, start him.
Yeah.
I like the tight ends this week too. So I think the opposite. Josh might throw for a lot of yards, but it's play action passes, guys wide open, stuff like that. I don't think he's going to come out and just sling the ball over the place. I know fans want to see that based on what they saw, in the opener. But this feels like a game for me. Like, the Bills are going to run the ball a lot, move the chains. I think the tight end's going to be involved. I'd like to see Trent Sherfield get some more snaps this week. But, I kind of felt like a hypocrite because at first I was bitching earlier in the week on my show that Trent Sherfield only had 11 snaps. But then in the next breath, I'm like, well, I want to see Dalton Kincaid out there all the time.
Right.
So you can't have both. You got 2 tight ends out there 70% of the time. You're not going to see a lot of Trent Sherfield.
It just popped in my head with what Nate was talking about. Do we start to see? Do you think Gabe Davis is our number 2 receiver?
Mm-hmm.
He deserves to get our second most snaps. Do you think he's still of a tier where he deserves 90% of those snaps? Or
maybe not that much.
Do you think he could start to be a 70% guy, and maybe Sherfield deserves 25% of those?
Sherfield's a better blocker. I mean, that matters. Yeah, well, I know. Definitely a better blocker.
I think he's
Gabe Davis is not a bad blocker.
Gabe Davis is a pretty good blocker.
He's a good blocker. I'm not saying he's a bad blocker.
Sherfield, I think many people described him as
one of the better.
Sure. He
Yeah.
was graded the best one out of anyone last year.
Sure.
But do you think he deserves some of Gabe's snaps?
So here where I am struggling with Gabe because I don't want to overreact too much to lack of production week 1. I still think some of that is a Dorsey problem. So again, that comes back to the same thing I said all offseason, which is cool. You can add more weapons, but until Dorsey's scheming these weapons up, I don't think it matters who you put out there, what number jersey it is. You're still going to have the same issue. To me, I don't know if it was contrived by the team because he's coming into a contract year or not, but there was too much hype around the conversation about Gabe Davis internally for me to pull the plug on that experiment right now. I think we got to give it a few weeks here. I think if you get it through the first month of the season and he's not living up to the type of expectations and production that you want with consistency, then we can have this conversation. But I think you need to, the way Stephon Diggs talked about Gabe Davis and like he's going to go off, he's almost unguardable. You heard guys at the beat talking about how he looks real good. Constant highlights. It looks like he's fixing the catching. He's out on the jugs while Pat McAfee's on. Like, he's doing all the right things. There's a lot of hype associated to him.
He still might.
Yeah. And this could be, if you look at the Raiders secondary, this could be a get right game for a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and so you asked Pat, and you want to see the big James Cook and not necessarily Josh slinging it around. I'm the opposite, where I think that back 5 is where you can take a lot of advantage and get Josh right and get Gabe right and really just have a coming out party and explode, because you want to do it quickly, right? You don't want Max Crosby to just, to your point last week, you don't want to sit big drops and get downfield.
The last thing we want is that I'm going to try to remember right. I think it was the Houston game, maybe in London.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was, where we single-handedly let JJ Watt win a game that they
you can't do that.
Lord,
you can't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Max Crosby's good enough to do that. You can't let
this back, look at what Stephon Diggs did to Sauce Gardner, right? Like, I love Sauce Gardner. I talk about his physicality and stuff and crap on him for that, but Stephon Diggs was open every single play against what most people call the top cornerback in the NFL. He's gonna abuse Marcus Peters.
Oh, darn it! I was gonna say.
Name
me a Raiders cornerback real quick.
Oh,
yeah.
They have a good young
Stanford route.
The Maryland kid is going to be good, but he's not ready.
Jamarcus Bennett?
Yes.
Jacorian Bennett.
You guys in the last 7 minutes have completely changed my mindset of what I want to see.
We're gonna go all out
tomorrow. I lied.
40
dropbacks. Don't start tight ends.
Yours is a smart one. It is, and I think that's the best path to a even-keeled, steady game that we don't risk. I also think
burn it all.
Honestly, part of it is it wouldn't be bad to let Josh just rip it to shreds. And is there risk that we could? Because if we go 0-2, we don't literally throw the season away.
It's not
crazier
good.
Things have happened, but you do risk it. If you go 0-2 with 2 conference losses, it is really, really low percentage that we can pull that back.
If
So
the Bills, I mean, it goes without saying, if the Bills lose this game, they're in a world of trouble.
Oh,
if you can't bounce back from that game on Monday, home opener, and you don't beat the Raiders,
9.5 points.
That's not bad. But let's just say that the Bills do win. But let's just say it's an ugly game.
Yeah.
And let's just say Josh is maybe at best pedestrian. You guys do your post-game show. What type of vibe do you feel like you're going to get from comments?
It'll feel like
it's not going to unsatisfactory,
It'll
right?
feel like a loss.
It won't be good. Yeah. We'll probably have to warn a lot of people in the comment section to chill out.
You're good at that too.
Yeah.
Well, and it'll be exactly, we've had these before. So I'll give a comparison. The post-game show of that Packers game last year,
where it was not a good game,
where it was like, hey, we just won by double figures, and it's like, we're 5-1, and this is supposed to feel really cool, but that game sucked, and I don't really understand why everything looked so hard and we couldn't move the ball, and I don't want one of those. I want 45-0 and everything to be perfect. I want them to look clearly like the team who is favored by 9.5 points at home. I don't need it to be 42-0.
Really, because I want them to look like San Francisco did last week. That's what I would like.
Give me like a Cowboys Giants 40-0, just like
that's what I would
feel
like.
bad for them by the time we get to the.
I'm almost always of the mindset that just win, and that's all that matters. There's only 17.
I will
games.
take
it's
every
hard to
version
win
of a
NFL.
win. Yes,
it is hard to win in the NFL, but this game specifically, they do have to go out and they have to win impressively. Not just forget the fans, forget us who are talking about them. They need to get themselves right, and they need to feel better about themselves.
I'm a big believer in some of the things that you can't quantify: momentum, confidence, things like that. I do think I agree with you that this needs to play clean in terms of getting everybody that confidence back. That, to your point, if you play like you're one of those top 5 teams and you know it and you go put it out there on film, then you start playing like it every week.
You know what sucks the most about losing sucks the most.
I was going to say just that.
What's close to it, though, is we've spent so much time. We've talked to Nate and Bulldog. You guys will continue to talk about it. We're talking about Josh Allen and the urgency in this and that. The defense just played really good.
I mean,
and nobody's really talking about how good the defense was.
We talked about it a little bit when Nate was here. It's hard not to keep coming back to Josh because that game was specifically won and lost by Josh. But Aaron Schatz continues to bring that up. And I actually wrote him a DM this week and thanked him for being like the voice of reason here, calming people back down that all the data says this was an aberration, this performance by Josh Allen. And if you look at what this defense was able to do, even with Zach Wilson, the way that they were able to play shows him that all his projections of what this defense was going to look like are going to hit, and that this is going to be, without Von Miller, this is going to be a top 10 unit, top 5 potential unit. And that's, again, we're talking about the Jets defense doing that and being enough to win 7 games without Aaron Rodgers. So you're already loading yourself with, hey, if our defense plays that way, we can win 7 just that way. And now we just need Josh to be good for 5-6 games to be Josh Allen.
Here, I'm going to try to add some silver lining back into this to feel good about what has frustrated us so much. How much better do you feel about that Leonard Floyd signing now?
Great.
After watching that game Monday night.
I think I saw on PFF he had the 4th best pass rushing productivity grade of anybody or any defensive end in the NFL in week 1. Let me give you a take that you might not like it, you might not agree with it, but the defense looked really good and the offense looked really bad. Well, Josh looked really bad anyway on Monday. I'm more concerned for this season about the defense than I am the offense.
That's not
for a reason.
That's not that hot.
Not because I don't think the defense is not that lukewarm at least.
I think a lot of people are still concerned.
They're going to play a lot of great quarterbacks. That's my only point. You know, I don't even have to name them. There's so many. I think the offense is going to be fine. The talent is there. Not that there's not talent on the defense, but I think defense is going to have a lot of challenges. I think the Bills' offense can score on anybody. They just can't turn the ball over 4 times.
Yeah. The Bills' defense, depending how Vaughn comes back, is going to get Von Miller back. And that's the thing to me that is like, if they can play at a level that is a top 10 level without Vaughn, you put him back even at 70% Von Miller.
Vaughn, Greg Rizzo, and Floyd.
Yeah. So it puts us in a weird spot where all of a sudden I'm torn because we have the combination of we should feel really good about Christian Benford's play. We should feel really good about Trey White's play. He's never been a good run defender or a good tackler. So
PFF hates Trey White.
But he looked good. The defensive line looked great. The one thing that genuinely concerned me was I don't know that I've ever watched a play where I thought, oh my God, Jordan Poyer doubted himself. And like that open field moment, like one earlier, I get it. Everybody takes a bad angle here or there. So the one play where he should have gotten beat him to the sideline, I get it. It's not great. It happened in the Jalen Warren play in the preseason.
Yeah.
That one, like, hey, yes, as you age, you have to learn your angles a little bit different because you don't have the exact same burst you did before. The second play in the game, the open field spot where you could see him hesitate and be like, oh crap, I don't. And you could see him processing it. Gave me just the moment of pause. But God, he's been just the heart and soul of this defense for so long. Don't let this be the year we've learned the hard lesson.
Micah also got rolled by a tight end on that play too.
Yeah.
You can hear the whispers getting a little bit louder too about Jordan Poyer.
There's a
week from
reason
certain
his
people.
market value came back down from where they thought it would be. And so what I'd feel better about that though is the addition of Rapp. Right, like we were concerned how that would work out, and so at least there's insurance this year where they were pulling guys off the street last year to fill a starting safety role in this defense. At least worst case scenario is Rapp also doesn't work out, and then you have DeMar Hamlin, who is at least adequate at times. So you have multiple levels of insurance at that safety position this year from last year.
So Pat, before we get you out here, give us a prediction. You talked about what you were hoping they did game plan wise. You changed your mind at what you were hoping.
I did. I might change.
We got you drunk. We got you drinking Kool-Aid.
I got some music going on here. I'm looking around. I might change my mind.
This is why everyone calls us homers. We get you all drinking the Kool-Aid.
Pat Miller bought me a couple beers. Bills 34, Raiders 13.
Ooh,
big win,
big
win, 3-score win. And I lied about James Cook. Josh Allen's going to have a great game.
Going to go for like 300 in the air, 100 on the ground, a couple hurdles. Yeah. All right. I like it.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys. This was fun.
We're keeping all your stuff.
All your setup is so incredible.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys, for also, for helping me out all these times, always coming on my show and stuff. It's always fun talking.
I still haven't gotten an invite to an actual show where he buys people wings. Can you believe that? I've been on this guy's show 65,
I literally invited
times.
you 2 days ago.
Unbelievable. The disrespect.
Let's
go.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, baby.
Hands all sweaty from the mic. Take it.
Here we go.
Get over here.
Without further ado, our next guest of here's fun. The Batavia Daily, the new editor for
Fresh and Clean.
Digest.
That's a free beer right there.
I'll throw that down.
Careful.
Take care of that.
Some clean white
Brasky.
shoes.
Alex, welcome.
Oh, we got video work.
Yeah. We're all
Where are we,
fancy
up
and
here?
everything.
It only works if you can see our faces.
Yeah.
Right.
That's our best selling. It's our selling pitch.
That's all we got.
And boy, what beautiful faces they are.
That's all right. Right. You look nice today, man. All right. So
Gorgeous day out.
Beautiful weather, and I hear the weather for the game is going to be fantastic as well. So
yes, I was saying a little bit earlier.
300 level, it's not going to be hellacious as it is sometimes.
I was saying a little bit earlier that Greg was mentioning that terrible feeling. We get to do the post-game show, as you know, and so we had a good viewership, but people were definitely worked up. And then there's that lull in making content here for the week because nobody wants to talk about it for a little bit. But you come out here, Western New York today, the weather's nice. I said earlier that September weather in Western New York, I don't care what kind of mood you're in, right? It'll get you over that. But this vibe here, walking in, Bills fans dressed head to toe, it feels like everybody's gotten past it and we're ready to refresh. Are you getting that right now?
I was just going to say that. People are ready for the home opener. Yeah. I mean, the street is flooded. Leftern Co. is flooded in here with these pop-up shops.
This place is fantastic.
This is Buffalo through and through, just throwing it together before the home opener and getting the fans out here and together. And you're right. Rebounding from that disastrous performance in week one, I think, is the goal for everybody. Yeah. See Josh Allen go out there, error-free football, and really put their best foot forward and hopefully what the fans hope, making a Super Bowl run. Yeah. You guys going?
Well, obviously. So we'll see when it comes. So funny enough, I leave for Vegas Monday, so I'll try to scope out a spot.
Get a spot
I can sneak back into.
Where in the world is Greg Tompsett?
That's right.
My professional life doesn't always mix well with my personal life. So we've gone through a little bit. We had Bulldog and Nate on earlier. We just finished with Pat Moran. We've rehashed some of the different pieces.
Tough acts to follow.
Well, yeah, I have confidence. You've been in there with the team. how much do you think we asked them about, kind of wake up call versus like, hey, there's some questions about body language and about the vibe in the locker room and some of the different pieces. And, Aaron is talked about, he as critical as he gets of Josh Allen is those moments of like, listen, I don't want to hear, what you're supposed to do, and I'm going to be better next time. Like I need to see
howdy
it.
press conferences.
Yeah. We've heard them too often, I think.
How are you feeling on what you've seen with the team, with their actions, and that you think their ability to kind of process and move on?
Yeah, I think they've proven in the past that they can rebound from a performance like that.
Yeah.
Last season, I think they recorded 4 turnovers in 2 games. The very next game, in both circumstances, error-free football, 0 turnovers. So they've proven that they can do it in the past. I think they're going to prove it once again this week. The Raiders made things difficult on the Broncos, but certainly not world beaters by any sense of the imagination.
Russ had plenty to do with that.
Right. And I think their strength lies on the offensive side of the ball. A couple stars on that side with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. And Jimmy G is just a winner, man. And anywhere he goes, he just wins games. You don't know how, but
very efficient.
He figures it
Someone
out.
posted that if Jimmy G can go to 3 different spots and be at the top of all the analytics, do we need to just stop believing in analytics? Like,
math is pretty dumb.
Is there something wrong that we don't understand about math?
Well, there's something to be said for just the onions, we'll say. When you get in there in an NFL game and you just figure it out. And on top of that, he had a good situation in San Francisco.
Yes.
And he, like I said, he's got stars on that side of the football in Las Vegas. So
he certainly seemed to rely on Jacoby Myers a lot. And obviously, I'm glad to see he's not playing this week because out of any modern football, we don't see that many like gruesome, crazy hits anymore. The worst things we see is exactly what he had, that blank stare afterwards where he's, you can tell, okay, this was serious. Something's wrong there. He was a huge safety blanket for Jimmy G in that game. He got more targets than Devontae Adams.
Right.
So I'm curious to see what they do now in this next game where I hope we triple cover Devontae Adams and dare them to go to somebody else.
Right, and you saw Tre'Davious White, his first game out there with a full off season. I thought he performed fairly well against Garrett Wilson. That was just a grown man play in the end zone. I mean, there's not much you can do with a receiver like that, but you might run into some of those circumstances with Devontae Adams this week. But I think you're right. I think you got to throw the kitchen sink at Devontae Adams and hope for the best elsewhere. You didn't see a lot from Hunter Renfrow last week.
That could be one this week.
And maybe he's implemented more into the offense this week. So interested to see what the Raiders have. Josh McDaniels, obviously a great offensive mind. And like I said, Jimmy G just wins wherever he goes. And Josh Jacobs not really the difference maker they wanted to see in week 1, I don't think. But
I'm sure they saw Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook on Monday night.
Exactly. So that'll be a key for the Bills as well.
Do you have any concerns in that? I know that's a talking point that often comes up with when you have a performance like Brees Hall had, where it's a lot of big runs. It's not necessarily efficient running when you actually break it down. He had a couple big ones. Do you, in modern NFL, like Bulldog was saying, he's going to get some phone calls, even if they win 31 to whatever he said, and Brees Hall goes or Josh Jacobs goes off for 150. You're going to get those phone calls. Like, does that stuff bother you? Because I see those runs in between the 20s and I don't care. Like, get 80 yards on the ground. This defense, time and time again, to your point, they give those up, but then they don't. It's a bend but don't break style. And they end up going with a field goal.
Even that 83-yarder for Hall was a field goal.
Right. I think that's been their defensive style for the past several years. A lot of times you see teams work it inside the 35, the 30, sometimes into the red zone, but they really do a nice job in close. And what a play by Christian Benford last week, chasing that down.
Although I do contest, if Brees is healthy, full Brees, he's probably gone.
Maybe he turns on the Jets.
But good on him having the presence of mind that, like, hey, you don't know if he's going to stumble. Right. You don't know what's going to happen. Put yourself in a position where you can help the team. And he did. That was a 4-point play.
That's a late round pick mentality, right?
That pretty much sealed him locking that position down and not being able to get a pride out of his hands for years.
And I was surprised to see him. I think 100, maybe not 100% of the snaps, but
it seemed like it.
Really out there as the number 2 cornerback consistently. Last year, you saw a bit more of a rotation, even with 3 players at times. So I think you're right. I think he's one step closer to locking that down moving forward. And what a find that is for Brandon Beane.
God. I expected it to be a rotation with Benford and Dane Jackson. I expected that. So then I don't know if it ended up that Dane literally played 0 snaps, but he hadn't played yet into the fourth quarter. So I think he might have ended up coming in for a snap or 2 at some point. but I don't think there was anything beyond a situational substitution later on, and I don't see any reason for that to change.
But for a guy like Kyrie Elam, I know there's frustration around that pick. It's Sean McDermott has proven guys like Levi Wallace, Dane Jackson are hard to unseat if you're just doing your job right and being in position and doing what the coach tells you. Then you add on what they saw from Benford in that tape of the effort level. You're not going to unseat a guy like that. It's going to take a whole lot of effort to do that. But kind of speaking into the personnel, I want to stay on the defensive side of the ball since we talked so much on offense today. Eric Turner put out, Raiders went pretty heavy set last week against the Broncos. We saw that the Bills still stayed with Taron Johnson in the nickel defense. They brought in Taylor Rapp for a couple of those plays behind the line. He had mentioned maybe with some of the bigger sets that the Raiders want to do you bring in a third linebacker, or are the Bills just going to stay put no matter how people try to wedge them out of that nickel and stay put with the nickel and go with whether it's Rapp coming in to spell Taron? Sometimes they're just keeping Taron on the field.
I think that's what you'll see more of. I think Rapp, had 20, 25 plays or so on defense this past week. And I think that's what you'll see. I think that's why they got him. Substitute him in for Taron Johnson. I thought we might see a little bit more dime coverage and taking a linebacker off the field last week.
Although to Greg's point, I don't think the game presented
exactly. Once Aaron Rodgers went out, I think that changed things. But I think it would be surprising if they bring in an extra linebacker. You don't see them do that very often. But to your point, this might be the game that calls for it. The Raiders use a fullback at times, which you don't see a lot in the NFL.
22 and 23 personnel.
Right.
Like, when's the last
so you might have to match up.
Yeah, fullback and 3 tight ends.
Right.
Having that number usage is odd. And I
question for you on that, though. What time would Kirksey didn't come up from practice squad, right?
I think 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock today on Saturday has to. Okay.
Yeah. The elevation announcement would have to happen this afternoon, so we would know.
Right.
Do you guys think that comes?
What a band!
I know. Look at him, dude. He has a phone case. He was holding it up earlier. I was like, I can't see your phone.
The Zubaz King.
It's hard when you live in Cleveland. Like I don't.
You got to stand out.
Yeah,
he's very subtle about his fandom.
Right. Putting the flag up for the neighborhood. They can smell the
hard.
Mushrooms cooking every Saturday or whatever day.
But the way that this game is coming, I do think that it's going to be interesting. And this would be one where it could make sense. But I think we'll find out today of whether that's the case. And don't get me wrong, I don't know that it has to be Kirksey.
No.
You couldn't just do that with Dotson and bring in a third linebacker on some of those plays.
Yes.
Because although no one wants to see him turn and run with anybody, honestly, coming forward in run defense, he's a perfectly fine linebacker.
Right.
Like he can do that. So if that's
although you did see in the preseason, he kind of got caught up in the wash a few times. But you're right. That's certainly his strength.
Correct.
Coming up and supporting in the run game.
Yeah,
correct.
I would prefer the discretion Kirksey.
Right.
But I can live with it in a game like Las Vegas. I can live with it if they want to give Kirksey another week. I do think that was one where I don't think Bernard did anything to outright lose the job. I don't think Bernard did anything to be like, oh my God, we have to move on.
I think he got better as it went.
Correct. But I also don't think so Christian Benford reassured us, oh my God, that's his job.
And we didn't see that from
Terrell Bernard did not take that job and reassure us that, they're definitely leaving. I don't think Kirksey is destined for Duke Johnson duty. I think he is brought up at some point.
At the same time, I think they knew there were going to be some growing pains with Bernard, and I don't think he did enough to lose the job. I think he kind of showed the weaknesses that we expected from him, but at the same time, he did show some ability in pass coverage, and which they certainly, I think that's why they made that decision there, because of his ability in pass coverage.
How long do you think that leash is? Is this like a month of the season project?
I always look at the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
The first 4 weeks of the season, the old first quarter of the season before the 17th game.
Right.
But I think after the first 4 weeks, you kind of assess where you are from there, and then maybe you bring up the veteran, or perhaps maybe they go back to
because it doesn't become one of those things where you want to waver back and forth on this, right?
Exactly.
Like where if it's bringing Kirksey and then that doesn't work, I feel like you got to know Bernard's not trending the right way.
I almost think that's a one-time switch,
right?
Because if you get to the point where you need to start Kirksey, you've basically said, okay, we're going to turn it over to him for the rest of this season.
Right.
And I think to Alex's point, that's not a week 2 decision regardless. One, even though he didn't grab stranglehold of the job, he also didn't wet himself. Like he played
better than Josh Allen.
He did play better than Josh Allen. Exactly. Lost my train of thought. So being in that kind of position, we also have to be honest with ourselves of what Christian Kirksey is.
Yeah.
Right.
Christian Kirksey is a heady veteran who is going to be better than Terrell Bernard coming forward. He has the experience calling defenses. He ain't turning and running with anybody either.
Right. So
you
is
don't
he,
want him
is
out
he,
in
get-
space
is he
over and
going
over.
to be a big improvement from a Tyrell Dye? We don't know.
Higher floor? Higher floor is what you're telling yourself.
Right.
But is that a game where when it's the Chiefs, when it's the Bengals,
Right.
is that the kind of player that Burrow or Mahomes is going to be working to isolate in space? And that's where I get into the mindset of, okay, that's what I want the 20 to 25 snaps of Taylor Rapp from is if we know it's going to be a 75-25, 80-20 split, I kind of think I'd prefer that it's Christian Kirksey in the 75-80%
Right.
because he's in there in the rundowns. He's in there to fit those, to get into those run fits. I trust him to do that. And when it's a 3rd and long, we're pulling the linebacker for Rapp anyways.
Right.
So if that's the case, that's part of where my head is of, okay, if the reason that we're keeping Bernard on the field is for pass coverage, I kind of would prefer Taylor Rapp's the one out there anyway.
Yeah.
So, we'll see where that goes. And I think.
How did you think
4
Rapp
games is a
played?
good one.
How did you think Rapp played in that game? I thought there were some inconsistencies there, but especially on the punt return, I thought he had a chance
He's
there.
almost the opposite to where I like him in space in coverage, but you also get into a spot where all of a sudden you're now
really bringing in the stars.
So if Katherine Fitzgerald has joined us, she'll be joining us here in just a moment. You're then in a spot where I don't want him up trying to fit run fits because now that's like when we saw the last year the Dolphins would shift and they realized they could get Taron Johnson to be the guy in the box and then just run a fullback right at him. You could do that with Taylor Rapp too.
Right.
Taylor Rapp's 200
What-
pounds. He's
Right.
not going to be taking on.
He may afford himself
fullbacks.
better in those situations.
I will say not necessarily breaking down Rapp's performance, but some of those clips that Eric showed of Rapp in and around the line of scrimmage. Not that Taron hasn't had those same type of plays happen to him, but to me, he shared that to me separately, and I talked about like this to me was a sign of how good Taron is at what he does. I think we take him and how he plays the run a little bit for
Absolutely.
granted here in Buffalo because he really is
Absolutely.
that third linebacker. And you saw the difference of Rapp dealing with playing in that type of space versus how Rapp was a little bit more back on his feet, on his heels, letting it come to him, where Taron so often is just shooting that gap,
Right.
getting in there,
Then
creating
again,
that type of disruption
Rapp's-
for a smaller player.
Rapp's first game in a new
Totally,
defensive system,
totally.
and they really kind of held him back during the preseason, I think,
Right.
to kind of not show their hand there. But I think as the season goes, he gets more comfortable. I think you'll see more consistency there.
I like it.
So before we
Get
get
him.
out of here,
Tell him.
let us know, what do you expect to see tomorrow? What's your prediction?
You have
of
to
how
give us
this
a
is
score
gonna go?
prediction.
Do you think we're going
People are
going to
go put money on this, so
well,
no pressure,
take
but
your prediction and go bet on
I might hit the creek right after this.
That's right.
To be perfectly
I'll
honest
join
with
you.
But I think 9.5 is a little high. I think it's going to be a closer game. It might not be music to Bills fans' ears, but
get out of here.
I think the Raiders are a little bit better than people think. Like I said, they have the stars on the offensive side of the football, and that week 1 performance on defense really stood out to me. A lot was expected of Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. At the same time, that's week 1 for them.
Yeah.
But I was impressed by that side of the ball.
Although I felt like no one wanted to win that game.
Right.
Watching back that Broncos and Raiders game, I was
I
like,
was watching it on Red Zone, and it
Yeah.
was like a comedy of errors at
yes,
times.
yeah.
The Broncos, I don't think, turned it over at all. They drive all the way down the field and just
miss kicks.
Yeah.
Not good.
couldn't score.
Not good football.
I forget what I predicted in my story, so I don't want to go against it, but I'm going to think that I went 31-17.
Okay.
But like I said, I think I'm going to change my mind, and I'm going to go 31-25.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
All right.
Let the folks know. I know you've got some new projects coming up here. How are things going with the Bills Digest?
Yeah, Bills Digest. We have our mid-season review coming up in a few months. 2 regular season issues, 5 during the off season. That's where we really dive into the coverage there. But the dailynewsonline.com at the Batavia Daily News. Weekly coverage from practice and the games. We try to keep up with Catherine over here, but we do our best.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Good
Thanks
to
for your
see
time,
you.
buddy.
Appreciate
Good to
it.
see you, man. In real life.
Looking good, by the way, boys.
All right. Catherine, welcome.
Catherine.
Come and join us.
Come on in.
Thank you,
What
guys.
is
How are y'all?
happening?
Good, good. How are you? So I'm excited because the fact that you had trouble parking, tell
That's
the
a good
people what
sign.
you just worked your way through to get here.
Traffic wise or pet wise?
I want to hear pet
all
stories.
Of the madness and the people everywhere here for the block party.
It was cool. I like drove past coming up and immediately was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to park here. Like, I don't know why you thought this. So went around the block, ended up getting really lucky with a spot. I think it was just like good parking karma. But yeah, I think then like weaving my way back through everything, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like sometimes we miss a bit of the festivities of like, tomorrow I'm going to get there so early just to be inside for a few hours. And I do try a lot of games, like walk around tailgates and just see like, oh yeah, this is like what I miss a little bit. But it was cool to see it here and just the music, everyone going all around. I love like local art and stuff like that. So seeing the spins of that on a team that means so much to the city was really cool.
And our sponsor Leftern does such a great job of bridging the gap between local artists and Bills fandom, which I think is sometimes hard to make it art. Sometimes with the Bills stuff, and they've done a great job. Look at all the stuff out here.
They were on my radar before I started covering the Bills, because I remember the season before when, sorry to bring it up, but the Bills did play the Cardinals, who I was covering, and their poster at the time was incredible. And I remember seeing it on Twitter, and so like knew who they were even then, being like, oh, like there was a similar concept for Milwaukee for the Bucks for a while that would do like game day posters all the time, and I'm like, I don't follow, that team at all, but I'm going to just check out this art because it's so cool.
It is cool.
That's what we love. Greg goes, some people think like he's producing them or doing them or has one. It's 17 different artists. So there's someone different. So I like, and I won't lie, like some of them, it's like not the style that I would go, but that's really cool. And then some of them, like this week, it's like really dialed into my like childhood transformer phase.
Okay,
like,
yes.
Oh, I need that.
Some of them definitely speak to you. My wife, so I have a ton of tacky Bill stuff that's up in the house.
But I also love chaos.
Tacky guys, but these are those prints that whenever I get them, she's like, okay, you can hang that. Like that looks cool. That's art. That's real art.
That's
right?
actual art.
Yeah,
it's a good a barometer of
it.
But
you talk about coming in here, and I've asked everybody coming back because we all make content in different forms and we interact with the fan base in different ways. And obviously, after Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, like our content goes down a little bit. The clicks go down. People aren't as interested, right? People get a little mean even. But then you come out here today and you see Bills Mafia out and about, smiles on everyone's faces, seemingly turn the corner. Do you get that vibe?
I mean, I think there's also just so much excitement for a home opener too. I think to your point, absolutely. It's kind of like all right, Monday, as a team, 24 hours, move past it, whatever, lean on their cliche there. But I think, you can tell how excited people are. I think especially just to have a game here again. I think it's always very cool for me to see like the new players on the team, whether free agents, guys who got drafted, whatever, like their first experience of it. It like, a lot of the stories are similar. It's cool just to hear them being like, oh yes, I got stuck in traffic coming today. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they warned everyone about that.
I was just gonna say, I really do. Like, I know the Bills, you hear it talked about a lot about how they do all of the like off-field player management
onboarding
stuff, about families and like the role that even like the Barclays play as a family.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if part of that is like, hey, we're actually not kidding on Sunday morning. However early you thought you were going to come, you need to come an hour earlier than that.
Oh my gosh, they must.
Well, I mean, you talked about wanting to get in early to not only get yourself ready for the day and to be inside when you're going to be outside covering the thing for the whole day. What time do you head into the stadium?
I don't go as early as some people on the beat. I always try to go early, and then I am myself, so I go a little later. But the biggest
you sound a lot like my wife there.
But I try to be there like well before inactive, so well before 90 minutes ahead of the game, just so then I can be settled in place for that. But I vary it based off game a little bit. This past week, it also like a night game, I'll go way earlier, Monday night especially. So I think for the Jets game, got to the stadium at like 3:45 for the 8:15-ish kick. Yeah. It varies.
On a 1 o'clock, what time are you out of there? On a 1 o'clock,
PM.
Really?
Yeah.
You're just there, just crunching all day.
So it's a little different for everyone, obviously. But game ends, then there's all the post game stuff, transcribing for a little bit. We write, I think, like 8 stories between the 4 of us from the Buffalo News. Yeah. So knocking out like a longer one first, or sometimes maybe a shorter. Like we'll collaborate on a notebook, so maybe I'll write something just to like throw in there, then they can file it sooner. Mm-hmm. I'm an anxious writer. So even once I'm filed, I'm still checking in with my editor of like, okay, well, like, does it need anything else for online? Like, should I add this? Should I add that? And then at don't know, sometimes just like sit and stare at the wall for a few minutes before I'm like, okay, time
Check
to
Twitter.
Time to go home.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
on Twitter a
Yeah.
ton, but I truly usually leave around 10 p.m. on
That's a
Sunday.
long day. That was a
1 p.m.
long
game.
day. Yeah.
So talking about being there on Monday night, I don't know if I can recall as big of a shift of I honestly when I saw, as cliche as it was, Rodgers coming out in the flag, but the fans' reaction
Oh my
in
gosh.
New York City on 9/11 to then those 10 minutes after he left the field. I don't know if I can ever remember that high of a peak and that deep of a crash afterwards. Was it palpable there
Oh my
in the
gosh.
stadium?
I think for sure, and especially having covered, this is my third time going there covering the Bills, and the first season there was not that much excitement there.
Yeah.
So I think even just seeing that massive of a shift of how excited people were there. I know they talked about it on the broadcast and we were tweeting about it, but like they had to clear the stadium for a while before the game.
Weird storms.
So then when people were finally flooding in, you could tell they were like, I don't know, it's almost like they opened the gates and they're here.
Right.
And then it like just went silent when all that was happening. And yeah, it was a gut punch for sure.
With that type of excitement heading into the game, though, like you've covered a lot of football games, a lot of stadiums. Stephon Diggs talked about it with Von Miller, talking about like primetime in New York, with how much hype it was, almost felt like a concert. Did you feel like it was like a different type of event than a regular season football game?
They had a light show.
Yeah.
And they had it like multiple times.
Right.
Where like my editor before was like, hey, like here's this, and like a few of my friends were like, oh, you should have brought like your Taylor Swift bracelet to like light up with it. They use cell phones instead of bracelets for this one. But yeah, I think it was more like just all the aesthetics of it beforehand. There was something a little different to it than just like a normal game for sure.
On TV, it didn't translate the same.
Okay.
But I could kind of tell. So was it like an app or something they had? Like someone, a central point was changing the colors on the phone.
Totally. So it was.
You caught some glimpses of it, but you couldn't see it.
I always try to take videos of it, and then like the light from the window in the press
it never
box,
comes out. It's like trying to take a picture of the
me.
moon or something. Yeah.
Oh, I love taking bad pictures of the moon.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
day I'm gonna make a coffee table
A whole
book of them.
yeah.
It's like it was so pretty this night. It looks, like a pencil.
Yes.
But yeah, so their phones would change between green, white, and then just going off sometimes. But it was cool. They did it a few times during the game also, which is something I'm not used to. Like at first I was kind of like, can they do this?
Is that right?
Like,
Are you allowed to do that?
It's dark on the field for the players. Is this allowed? But they did it at least twice during the game. And like coordinated to music and everything. It
Probably
would,
they would put something up on the board and tell fans, okay, it's time to put your phones up or something.
I forget exactly. Like for the beginning, it was very clear. I don't remember for the ones in game because again, those were I was caught off guard by those of just like, oh, I didn't know we could do this.
So kind of closing out our segment here, you have an access not only to ask questions but also to see the players' reactions and how they go through things. You've now seen some of the things in previous seasons after tough losses, after ugly games. How are you seeing, we talked a lot about the body language of some of the post-game pressers were weird. Some of the things, are you seeing that 24-hour rule seem to be pretty genuine, or is there some anxiety of like, hey, yes, this can be a get-right game, but it kind of needs to be. How is it feeling around the team?
I think, I kind of see it that way where they're like, we're going to be good, but like we need to be good. But I would see such a distinct difference from like Monday night. Oh my gosh, like you were saying, I would put it as up with some of the most deflating losses I've seen for this team. And it's a little hard to compare. My first season access was different from COVID. So like we weren't always there after, it's like over Zoom after a hard loss. But, that I was at Josh's press conference, wrote just about him that game. And that was among the most deflated I've seen him, but seemed pretty normal this week. I think the short week kind of helps in a sense of it's almost like you have to get through it faster. A few guys mentioned that. They were like, yeah, there's like pros and cons to a short week. This time, like we want to get on the field again. So.
Yeah. And to turn it around on a short week. So obviously you've, again, covered a lot of Bills games. You've seen them bounce back from these types of situations. You've been in the press room when people are questioning the offensive side of the ball. Do you think this is fair of us to be, we've said it a number of times now, calling it a get right game against a pretty good AFC team? Like they showed up pretty well in week one. Are we sleeping on a team saying like, okay, the Bills just have to come in and get right on these guys?
yes and no. I think it's so fascinating to have that in like a week 2 conversation
Right.
where like it's so easy to make a big deal out of week 1, obviously, because there's no wider sample size. I think that's why I'm personally really excited for a game to be like, oh, I have a 2-game sample
Correct.
size to talk about. But I think they're still a very good team.
Yeah.
Don't turn it over 4 times and you're going to look a lot different.
Let's hope,
Monday
right?
night. So, you know.
And it's funny because there are some similarities to where, you know, kind of a one-person receiving core. You know, Garrett Wilson to Devontae Adams, a talented running back, some questions on the offensive line. The big difference is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Max Crosby is a monster.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
You know, Tyree Wilson, depending on how many snaps they give him, that can have some control. But
But it's not the Jets.
The back end, one, they're in the Quinn and Williams in the middle of
No
the
Sauce
defensive
Gardner.
line,
Yeah.
and they don't have the secondary. That's where I really hope to see a lot more. I don't think we're going to completely shut down this offense. There's too many talented players. They're going to score some points. What are you expecting from a game plan standpoint? We've asked a couple folks on whether is this the kind of game where you prove Josh can play with the governor?
Just
and
let him go.
You want him to show control, play action, run game, 225 yards, but it's way more running? Or is this the one where you
Burn
kind of
it
let
all.
him have it
Just
and
let
you let him go
Yeah.
crazy? What are you expecting in this kind of approach?
While I love chaos, I don't think they go burn it all in that sense. I'm not on the coaching staff though,
Right.
so my input doesn't matter. But I think they really, you know, I found it really interesting hearing Sean McDermott talk some about this week of how you attack this from like multifaceted things when it's an ongoing problem for someone with Josh and his tendency to, you know, sometimes his best play can easily become his worst play so easily. And I get it from not from the playing football standpoint. Or
If
like,
I could do those cool things, I would do them all the time.
right.
too.
Like I can't hurdle people the way he does. But what I
Yes.
get is like having something that like, it's like, oh, I thought I kicked this. Like I thought I got this out of my system and here we are again. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty human.
Yes.
And so I think that's why maybe they don't go like, Josh, just do it all. Because I think they are still trying to, you know, he is going to be better when he is a little more calculated in some of those decisions, even though they work sometimes. And that's what makes it so tantalizing.
Yeah.
I compare it some like, you know, it's like you get that adrenaline from something, but it's not always going to work. So,
I mean, my wife has told me a ton of times to stop buying Bill stuff, and I bought some more
Listen,
today. So we're having the same conversations Josh is having at my house.
Yeah. So, and honestly, your analogy is so perfect because it took me back. Like, I'll have really good stretches, and I gamble more than I should. And I'll have really good stretches, and I'll win a bunch of money, and I'll feel really good about it. And then I'll have one of those where I'll lose more than I should, and I'll sit there in the moment like,
You know better.
You're smarter than this.
Yeah.
Why did you let yourself? You didn't need to keep double and tripling down. Like, what is wrong with you? And it's just that idea of like, I am smart enough to know better, and I still can't stop myself.
when
at
I
the
cut
moment.
it close driving into the game tomorrow, and
Right.
I'm like, Catherine, you knew this. You
Well,
told
You
them
needed to go
yesterday that
early.
you were going to go
You
earlier.
said you were going to go early.
You've learned this lesson so many times.
We
I mean,
just had this conversation with Pat of like, who needs to say what to Josh? And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, like, is there anything to say? He knows. He's an adult. Like,
Right.
you know, you were late. I know that I got to stop buying Bill stuff. You know, you need to not gamble when you're doing that. Like, are we making too much out of, obviously the result was bad and it was a 4 turnover game. You can't erase it. You can't take any of them back. But are we making too much out of like what needs to change to get Josh to stop doing this? Or is it just like he knows and we just hope he gets better?
Well, I think that's what was so interesting hearing from Sean this week is he was talking about how like coaching has evolved so much. It used to be just like you yell at someone and they figure it out
Correct.
or they don't. But now like, you know, there's sports psychologists.
Yeah,
there's so
yeah.
much different ways to watch and consume film. There's different ways, like there's such a bigger focus on the mental side of the game, which I think is so wonderful of just like, you know, help people unlock their best potential there. And so I think, you know, I don't know everything they're doing with him,
Sure.
but I think it's, to your point, it's not just, hey man,
Yeah.
Don't
Grow
do
up.
that
Everyone's saying
again.
like, oh, just tell him to grow up. Like,
grow up.
Yeah.
Exactly. A great insult always,
Yes.
but no, it's not going to work.
right.
He even, you know, on Wednesday when he was talking to us at one point, I think kind of got like nervous about what he was saying in the sense of he started to say like, I've had games like that before and I'll have games like that again, not because he wants to, but
No.
because like, this is how the league works.
It just is.
He's not like, oh, I woke up this morning and thought like 3 picks would be sick.
Yes. I'm going to just throw into double coverage every time I get a chance. Yeah.
Like, you know what? I would love this just
Yeah.
to drive everyone a little crazy. It's obviously not that.
No.
But so I think just having the multifaceted approach of like, how many different ways can we just show to him, if you don't make the giant play on this one, we're still going to march downfield other ways. We can do this.
Yes. And we'll get you a giant play.
Yeah.
We will find you a giant play at some point.
We'll still be so happy for you, our big quarterback. But
Yeah.
I think they approach it that way a little bit more of like, this works. Like the short passing game looks good at points.
Yes.
It's just, you lose all that when you
Correct.
I joked
Turn it over.
earlier that it's almost like Dorsey needs to like have the discipline, controlled, death by 1,000 paper cuts game plan, but you almost need to like throw Josh a bone every once in a while. Like all right, go ahead, rip one down
Take
the field.
one.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Like you almost need to you almost have to anticipate that like, hey, he's gonna get anxious here. He's gonna uncork one. You better give him one.
give him a cheat meal.
Yeah. Honestly, I keep snacks in the car for my wife so she doesn't get
Yeah.
upset, right?
Listen.
Like you got to throw him a bone.
Yeah. If I'm getting hangry, I need something immediately.
Quick, a little
Otherwise-
trail mix or something.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like between that and your comment on the kind of sports psychology human element, we think about them like machines. We think about
Right.
matter of fact, this came the other direction. People were asking about the Chandler Jones situation. I said completely sincerely, I think he has some legitimate like emotional psychological challenges going on. The story that came up before where he knocked on the back door of the Boston Police Department when they came out. He laid down, he took his shirt off, laid down on the ground and put his hands behind his back, said, I was told I needed to turn myself in. They checked everything. They had no idea what he was talking about and drove him back home. This is obviously a person who needs some support and some help in his life, and what's going on right now seems to be pretty genuine of what's Reed Ferguson's here interrupting
What
us.
up, Reed?
Hey, what's up?
So it's that kind of environment is, just challenging to be able to get your mind around and to be able to help with. So it's something to remember that these are people and they go through personal challenges just like any of us.
Yeah, and to your point though, those decisions are happening so fast on the field. We're all like, oh well, why didn't you do this, and it's like that's a split second. So it's
And to that point, that's like to kind of put a bow on the Josh Allen stuff. That split second, like he is who he is. He's wired a certain way, and we praise him and make magnets and things about him jumping over all over Buffalo. You can find him jumping over stuff.
Well,
when he does it on a bad situation, it's like that split second decision. He can't turn that off. It's just who he is and how he's wired.
I
For the
tweeted
vast
that-
majority, we
oh,
don't
go
want
ahead.
him to.
I tweeted. I think he got Pavloved into it.
Yeah.
Where it's like every time we're like, good job,
Great job,
and it's like,
Josh.
oh, but not this one.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Yeah.
That's
That's a great.
Yeah.
So
All right,
as
get
we
her.
wrap things up here. Give us a prediction.
You have to go on the spot.
Tomorrow, and how I would say I love the storytelling that you've gone through as you've been a part of the
thank
content
you.
community
Yes.
here, and some of the different pieces, and whether it's players telling other ones they stink. What other fun things do you have coming up here that we can be excited about, or that you're allowed to tell us about?
Yeah, no,
Right.
there's a few that I've got in the works. I know, I don't know if I can say exactly what they are, but I really like this group of receivers. So doing some more stories around on them, which is really exciting.
Awesome.
And then, just trying to plot ahead a little more of, I think I finally got in a flow middle of last year. Honestly, it took like a year and a half to be like, okay, now I can like work ahead instead of just like feeling like my stories are all reacting to something, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think there are a few pieces I'm starting to just like, I don't know, follow crumbs on or something like that. So
Yeah, it's got to feel good to know that you've got a couple going, and then when something comes, that'd be a good part for to add. To
Right,
that. And
right.
It doesn't always have to be that instant. to
No,
turn
it's
it out.
so helpful because I think that was, my first year was just getting to know everyone. And then some of my favorite stories are kind of like, I saw this moment like 4 months ago and now it makes sense in a story instead
Right.
of just like throwing it out before. So yeah, it's a balance for sure.
Good. So tell us, what do you expect tomorrow?
So we have to do predictions for the paper. I believe I said 31-21.
Okay.
Okay.
It was either that or 30-20 and I can't remember which because I was the last one to pick and I always try not to match someone else.
There you go.
So it was
smart.
something with
That's smart.
similar to those numbers, but and that was with the Bills winning.
Yeah.
I think they'll bounce back.
Yeah.
The Raiders, I think they are a good team still, but
Sure.
I think this will be.
They're favored by 9.5 for a
Right.
reason.
Exactly,
Vegas knows
yeah.
what they're doing. They're supposed to win by that.
I think it'll be a little cathartic for them to have the
Hope so,
kind of
hope so.
game that I'm expecting.
Our post-game shows are much more enjoyable when they are.
It's so much nicer. It really is.
So, real quick, you can't poke your ear in and not come and say hi. Oh, the push pop one or the little trays? Okay. Beautiful. Well, hey, and for anyone who Reed Ferguson's just off camera right there, and I know Amon's out there grilling. And
I had some wings before the show
for Grills Mafia.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna head back
that new
on
chicken
after.
rub competition. I did do. I'm gonna judge the event.
Yeah, we're gonna be coming out on the.
Yeah.
yeah.
I wish I could be there. I think it's the weekend.
I think you guys are.
I think it's a
Yeah.
road game. No,
Don't
it's
be.
okay. We're just
Appreciate
wrapping
you,
up.
my man.
Great series. All right, so that was it. We appreciate your time very,
Of
very much.
course.
Coming
Thank you
down
so
here.
much.
It was a ton of fun, and I honestly, I was a little earlier. It was fun, and it was chaotic and everything. I was
I'm getting a little
down as the day
claustrophobic
goes.
now, actually.
Honestly, like I don't even know if you're going to be able to leave to walk down the hallway right now. So
Yeah, it's
anybody
busy.
who's listening, come on down. The block party is rocking. There's still like 2 more hours to go to be able to come down. I'm really happy for all these vendors because I think. Like you never know when you do events like this and you come and set up a whole table worth of your
Right.
stuff and you've created this is like genuine locally created gear that they've made and have brought out here
It's
to,
awesome.
to put their heart on the line, and I'm really happy for them because these tables are empty now and
Yes.
people are buying up all their stuff.
Yes,
I'm excited to pop around and see more of it. I was
I
walking
know.
really fast and it almost hit someone, so glad I made it. But
Yeah, right?
thank you guys again.
Thank you very, very much. We
Appreciate it
your
so
time.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Yeah, y'all too.
Awesome.
All right, here I'll take this. Now I got 2
All right.
mics. Look at me.
There you go. Hey, fancy.
Yeah.
So,
Now I feel like Josh Allen up at the press conference, right? Like,
this has been awesome. This has been so
Yeah.
much fun. Had all these fun guests to be able to come and talk to us. The event here today has been fantastic. I can't say enough about what a cool partner Greg's
Greg's
has
dope.
been to be able to help with everything here. And any final thoughts here before we wrap things up?
Yeah, no, I think coming out here today confirmed where I'm at. One, for that getting over that loss quickly, moving on to a get right type game against the team again. We talked about it. Definitely has some high end talent that can cause some problems for you, but you just feel the Bills are so deep and have so much depth that they should be able to just put a noose on this one and just crunch it for 4 quarters and just know that your depth is going to win out.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with my bias. I'm very comfortable acknowledging that like what I'm going to say is what I need as much as it is what I predict is going to happen. But I also, it's not
Vegas
crazy
is on
to
our
predict.
side, to like you're saying.
Yeah, like they're favored that way for a reason.
Right.
I do think that I almost think it was kind of bad that the Raiders won because now it's easier to take them more seriously.
Sure.
It's easier to like, hey, we can't overlook this. They just beat the Broncos. And like being in that position now makes it that like, hey, I think the Bills are going to come out focused, disciplined, organized, and the Raiders are going to get 100% of the Bills' best effort. And honestly, that probably sucks for the Raiders because they're not ready to handle that.
No, yeah, this is a team that's still trying to figure out who they are, right? Like a lot of transition. Yes, they got better on defense, but it's not good enough. I don't think if the Bills are operating at their just even normal level, we don't need Josh Allen. We talked about it with Pat, like going off crazy. Even if the Bills are just operating at a normal pace, that 9.5 point spread feels totally in line.
So I still feel good about our predictions.
Yeah.
I know we were both in the same ballpark, and I do think that like 34-16, 37-16 ballpark.
Yeah, I think I had
feels right.
27-17, something like that.
17, I had 37-16.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to see I think that I feel very confident in a big offensive output, and I think they're not going to be able to do enough to keep up with that. I don't think we're going to shut them down. They've got some.
Yeah, they'll score.
Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs are all pros for a reason.
For sure.
They're going to break a play or two on their own, but it won't be enough to keep up with the Bills. And I think the fans are going to feel good. It's going to be the get-right game that you guys all need, and it's going to be a great time. So come and join us tomorrow, or for anyone listening on Sunday morning, come and join us later today after the game. Aaron and I will be live immediately following the game with your Cover One post-game show, and it's going to be a ton of fun. If you're listening to this early, make sure you check out the Air Raid Hour and their pregame show going live right before the game. Tons of fun to be able to watch. Anything else for the people?
Shout out Talking Buffalo podcast, Pat Moran. Thanks for setting us up, my man.
Pat was awesome as not only a guest, but as a fantastic producer. Make sure you're checking out his show, Talking Buffalo. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.